this short presentation on how to use the Healthy Colony Checklist to guide hive inspections and optimize record keeping. The Healthy Colony Checklist, or HCC, is both a tool and a process that provides a fast, simple, and structured approach to inspecting honeybee colonies and hives. The HCC form reduces record keeping to a minimum while maximizing the value of important data. Summaries of HCC form data can be used to track colony health status and help manage tasks needed to correct and maintain colony health. After this presentation, you should be able to do the following 3 things. Use the HCC tool to quickly and easily determine colony health status. Simplify record-keeping, decision-making, and task management. Recognize any gaps in your understanding of the colony's health. So let's dive in. First, let's ask ourselves as beekeepers, what do we want to know by the end of a hive inspection? The purpose of an inspection is to learn more about what is happening in the hive, so we can do what is needed to keep the honeybee colony productive and healthy. To do this, beekeepers need to answer the following 3 questions by the end of an inspection. Is the colony healthy? What is the current colony health status? What is causing the colony health issues? What needs to be done to fix the problem? What is the solution to the problem? In the mid-2010s, after years of honeybee colony health research, entomologist Dick Rogers developed a useful definition for a healthy colony, which includes 6 key conditions that must be assessed at each inspection. These conditions are related to brood, adult bees, queen, forage that is nutritious and food stores, stressors, and hive space. Before we look at the 6 conditions, let's review the HCC form that was developed to guide the inspection process and recording results. The HCC form is a simple 1-pager that requires very little writing. Assess all 6 conditions and check them off after they have been thoroughly examined. The HCC form is divided into 3 sections. The top section of the HCC form is where metadata is recorded. Metadata is data about where the observations were made, such as hive ID and apiary ID, and the date observations were made. The middle section is for checking off the conditions as they are assessed, and for making brief notes for each condition to highlight what problems were observed. The bottom section is for general notes. It is also a place to record hive weights for determining net weight change if this is of interest to you. We recommend using the HCC form every time a hive cover is removed, even if a full inspection is not done. At least fill in the top section and a few general notes. Next, let's take a closer look at each of the 3 sections of the form. In the top section to record metadata, include a date of the inspection and the name or ID for the apiary and the hive. Think of the hive ID as a house number. If the queen has an identifier, consider the queen ID as the name of the family that lives in the house. The other boxes are optional, but are helpful to track who did the observing and note-taking, how many brood boxes and frames are in the current hive configuration, and a page number to keep track of the completed forms. The middle section is comprised of checkboxes to check the status of the 6 conditions of a healthy colony. The conditions are presented as questions. Keep track of your observations about each condition with a mental checklist until you are satisfied that each condition question can be answered. Your goal is to answer with a yes or no answer in the boxes to the left side of the conditions. Yes is recorded as a check mark, and no is recorded as an X. In the space to the right, there is space to include brief notes on any problems you observed. Also, possible solutions can be noted here as well. The bottom section of the form is for general notes such as what management was implemented during the current inspection, the condition of the apiary, or conversations with landowners and farmers. Also, any hive weight data that is needed for calculating net weight change can be recorded here. Now let's look at each of the 6 conditions to better understand the definitions for each and how to assess them. The first condition listed on the HCC form is the brood condition. You'll be assessing all the conditions at once, but will start mentally checking off subconditions if and when problems are observed. Subconditions will be defined shortly. If seasonally appropriate, brood includes the 3 days in the egg stage, the 6 larval instars which progress from a newly emerged larva to just before cell capping, and all the stages of pupae as they undergo develop in capped cells up to adult bee emergence. It is important to learn to identify the 4 stages of development for the honeybee, i.e., egg, larva, pupa, adult, as well as the incremental stages for each. In total, there are 21 stages of development, and you should be able to recognize all of them. For example, a 1-day-old egg from a 3-day-old egg, a 3-day-old larva from a 5-day-old larva, or a 4-day-old pupa from a 9-day-old pupa. If you cannot do this now, then this is a great opportunity to learn how to identify each progressive stage. Once you have a good idea about how to identify the stages, even if you are off by a day or so, notes about what stages of brood are missing can be very informative. Also, your notes on the HCC form can now be in shorthand, such as L1, L4 missing. Let's return to subconditions. These are items on your mental checklist. For brood, the subconditions are the presence of all the stages, the area covered by each major stage grouping, i.e., eggs, larvae, pupae, the youngest and oldest brood stages present, and what stages are missing. With experience, you will soon be able to recognize the fatal condition. This is when there is no chance of reviving the colony, or the amount of effort outweighs the potential benefits. While assessing brood, you can also be making mental notes about what can be done to fix any brood issues. Record your final management decision about brood fixes on the HCC form. Here is an example of a completed brood condition record when the brood condition question can be answered with a yes. No notes are needed because we can assume that expert assessment has confirmed that the condition is seasonally appropriate. Here is an example of a completed brood condition record when the brood condition question is answered with a no. It is helpful to make a brief note about why the condition is not met. In this example, there were no eggs, and suggestions for management and follow-up actions are noted as well. If you are uncertain about your brood assessment, then put a question mark in the left-hand box. Try to learn how to assess brood as soon as possible so you can avoid the use of question marks. The only value to using a question mark is to identify a gap in your understanding. It does not help you determine a colony health status. The second condition listed on the HCC form is the condition of the adult bees. For a colony to be healthy, it must have an abundance of adult bees that span the range of very young bees to old foragers. This age range of adult bees is referred to as a balanced age structure and ensures that there are enough bees of the right age to care for brood and perform all tasks required to optimize the performance and health of the colony. During the assessment of the adult bees, mentally note if there are many adult bees of all ages and that there are bees performing all the tasks of the colony. Also, it is good to note temperament. Any change from previous assessments could be indicative of something else going on in the hive. If the bees are so abundant that they are crowded, or showing signs of crowding, or other unusual behaviors, these could be signs of other disorders or problems. If all the adult bees are old, then it will dwindle and collapse. This is a fatal condition and there's little point in trying to save the colony. The recommendation for a healthy queen condition is often questioned. However, it is actually very simple. If the queen is older than 1 year, we have observed in the US that older queens, even though they may be performing well, have a higher probability of gradual or sudden failure in the 2nd year, especially over her 2nd winter. Therefore, even if the queen is laying lots of eggs, appears to be behaving normally, and has no deformities, a 2nd-year queen still deserves an X mark for the queen condition. The subconditions to mentally check off for the queen condition include these questions. Is she color-coded so her age can easily be determined? Is she clipped? Does she appear healthy with no deformities and her behavior appears normal? Are there lots of eggs and good patterns and no breaks in brood age structure? The fatal condition would exist if the colony is hopelessly queenless and natural replacement fails and the colony does not accept a new queen. This slide summarizes what you can do to learn more about assessing the first 3 conditions. Feel free to pause here to study the slide, take a screenshot, or make notes. Assessing the food condition requires a greater awareness of what bee beneficial plants are blooming within at least a 2-kilometer, 1.25-mile radius of the hive. Ask yourself, what is available in the environment? Is nectar flow and/or pollen increasing or decreasing? How much food is stored in the hive? Is it increasing or decreasing? Is it a sufficient supply to last until next inspection? The mental checkoff of subconditions for the food condition can be done on a daily basis, even before you arrive at the apiary. Being mindful of what is in bloom, the nutritional value of what food is available for the bees, and how much competition there is for the nectar and pollen from other hives should always be on your mind. Are the brood cells getting food to nourish the growing larvae? Don't forget that the colony needs access to clean water. The fatal condition occurs when nectar and pollen are not available to foragers, and the hive is critically low on food stores. At that point, it may be too late to start feeding the colony with sugar syrup. Assessing stressors can be tricky, especially for new beekeepers. It requires developing search images for disorders and the signs of disorders. The goal is to spot disorders as early as possible before they become well established and have had an irreversible impact on colony health. There are many dozens of biotic and abiotic stressors that require a course to cover in detail. Therefore, we suggest making a list of stressors other than are already included in the other conditions, and study how to identify them and how to avoid and correct the impact of stressors before it is too late. Examples of biotic stressors to look for include varroa, small hive beetle, wasps, chalk brood, sac brood, deformed wings, and many more. Signs that indicate other disorders may be negatively affecting the colony include K-wing, skunk scat outside hive, crawling bees, and more. Abiotic stressors are things such as temperature, environmental pollution, and toxins. If one or more stressors exceed certain thresholds and cannot be brought under control, then a fatal condition exists. The final high-level condition is related to space in the hive. This may be the most difficult to assess, partly because it requires leaving empty space in the primary brood box for current and near-term needs for defense, expansion, and storage. Too much space can lead to small hive beetle and wax moth infestations. Too little space can lead to honey-bound condition, no room for egg laying, swarming, and colony dwindling. The rule of thumb that Dick Rogers has determined from observation and calculations is to leave 25 to 30% of empty drawn brood comb at the end of an inspection. During the colony growth phase in the spring and early summer, this empty comb will provide enough egg-laying space for 7 to 10 days. It is important to inspect the hive on a 7 to 10-day schedule to not only adjust the amount of empty comb space in the brood box, but also to assess the other 5 conditions. The subconditions to mentally check off include nectar storage space outside brood box, noting how much space inside the hive and the entrance can be defended by the number of bees in the hive, and numerous other factors listed on this slide. If the space cannot be defended, and robbing and/or predation is in full swing, then there is little hope of saving the colony. This slide summarizes the actions you can take to improve your ability to assess the last 3 conditions of a healthy colony. If you're not confident in your knowledge of these conditions and your ability to assess them, then you should study what is needed by the colony for each of these conditions. We hope this presentation helps you clarify what is required for a honeybee colony to be apparently healthy. For a colony to be defined as healthy, all 6 conditions receive a yes check marks. If there are any X marks, meaning no, then the colony is not healthy. And your job is to find out why so you can solve the problem or at least prevent it from getting worse. The other excellent feature of using the HCC form is that it can help you identify any gaps in your knowledge base so you can focus on your reading and learning in these areas. Being a well-informed beekeeper is essential for making apiculture sustainable. Here's a short guide on how to use the HCC method most efficiently and effectively.